And we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of Energy Transformation Week 2018. My name is Tara Taglienti, and I am here. My next guest is someone that is so full of amazing, fun, like lively energy, and she's so inspirational. I mean, like, you know what? I'm just going to introduce her so you can get some of that yourself. But I just want to say, here's the thing. I met Megan. I'm going to bring out Megan Sillito. Sillito.
Sillito.
Megan Sillito. I met her at a class in Hawaii, and she's really lucky that I hadn't listened to your radio shows yet. Because if I would have seen what you were up to in the world before I went to Hawaii, I would have been such a pain in the butt to you. I'd be all over you at that class. You are amazing. Like, wow, your energy. So, Megan, I would just love for you to just introduce yourself to the viewers and, yeah, just like say like who you are, what it is that you do, and I'm gonna ask you some more questions about you along this interview that we're doing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I would say probably one of the unique things about me is that I've been in the transformation game for 22 years. Like a lot of people, that's maybe 3, 5 years, 6 years, but I was in it before it was fashionable. And I was one of the ones that were kind of like, I felt like I was kind of cutting a path for something different and something new. And I always seem to find the right tool at the right time. And I'm crazy, like addicted to learning. And like, if you could show me something that will create transformation, I don't care how weird it is, I'll do it. Like I'm willing to do whatever it takes. That's why when I found Access, a lot of people are like, oh, that clearing statement's weird. I'm like, I've seen way weirder than that. And if it works, I'm doing it. Like, I don't care. Yeah. And so I feel like I've kind of built my career and my life on like basically transformation and what's possible and what can we create that's beyond what we've ever had before. And so that's really been, and I just have fun doing it. It's like, I love it.
I can tell. Like it shows. It shows in all of your being, like with everything that whenever you speak of it, and you're just so like, I know passion is like, me has interesting means, but I just see so much passion, and there's so much like you are truly like for people changing their lives, and it's just so genuine. And there's going to be more that I'll ask you about along those lines about how being authentic. But I've really, I listen to your radio show, and some of the things on there that you say, I've never heard another person in the transformation field or whatever, this self-development. I mean, this change field, whatever you want to call it. I've never heard anybody with your level of like, it's just like, you're just like, yes, like you can do it. And you're just always so, I want to say passion is the only word that keeps coming out, but it's just like, the way it's just like such an energy that I have not experienced in another person that's teaching this work or teaching these tools and stuff. And I know you're not only doing Access Consciousness, you facilitate your own Live Your Magic workshop, which you have people. I'm going to get ahead of myself. Hold on. Let me first ask you, okay, in your words, like, I'm going to wait. I'll bring this up in a little bit later. I'm getting ahead of myself. So will you tell everybody in your words, okay, like, what is like that drives you? Like, what is your, like, if I could say, like, I say a mission in the world, like, what's like that why? Like, what's the thing that just drives you to do what you do?
Well, a lot of things, but like my life was like completely messed up. Like I was not functioning at all. And I would say that I had a sort of a halfway between conscious and unconscious death wish from the time I was probably 17 to 29, 30 in there. I mean, like I totaled like 4 or 5 cars, and like I just was like and what it was for me is didn't see how I made a difference. I didn't know that I could make a difference. And underneath that was this, I would say, this mandate that I was born with that was here to make a difference. And so my beliefs and my points of view were sitting on top of that mandate. And so I was like, well, shit, if I can't find a way to make a difference, then I don't want to be here. And so, and I had been told my whole life I had all this potential, blah, blah, blah. And why aren't you living up to it? And I was like, well, why? Apparently I don't have any. And so I feel like I went through this process of feeling like I didn't matter. I didn't make a difference, and I didn't have any gifts or capacities to do that. And so when I realized that I did, when I started to see that I had capacity, I started uncovering some of that stuff through my own process of coming to healing and transformation. I saw the capacities and the gifts that I had that actually could change the world. And it saved my life to discover that I had genius in me. It literally saved my life. And it's like, not only did it save my life, but I've impacted thousands of people with that. And if Dum Dum could do that, anybody could do that, like anybody. And it was like, and it became this sort of mission, if you will, or it's like, I want to find as many people who don't get it, who don't see it, who maybe do, but aren't turning it up to the degree that they could. And that became my why.
So awesome. And you're like totally, like, I see it. It's just, it's actually beautiful. So would you say that that's kind of like, can you paint a picture of like, I know you said things were tough and everything. And I kind of want to know, so what was it like for you, like growing up? Like you said that you always knew that you had this thing in you, that you knew you were going to make a difference here on the planet. Like, what, like, can you highlight, because I just have it that there may be some people out there that have that in their world. And it's like, what, you know, like, can you paint a little bit of a little bit of a picture of like what that was like? And then, and then kind of like, what was the thing that like brought you, kind of like woke you up? I know you said you found some tools and stuff like that, but was there a point that kind of just like jolted you into like, this is who I am now? Like, what was, can you paint a little bit of a little timeline for me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what I knew that I was different. Like, I wouldn't say I knew as a kid that I was going to change the world or blah, blah, blah. But I knew I was really different. And what I was here to do was really different, because one of these things is not like the other when I was growing up. And I was like, I'm really weird, you know? And I mean, when I was 5 years old, I would climb this tree in our farm, and I would be like, I would wonder about whose God's God was. Like, well, where did that God come from, and who's his God? And like at 5, you know, these are the questions I was asking at 5 years old, you know? And there was a lot of, I would say, pain, conflict, abuse in the family I grew up in, a lot of confusion. I was a secret adoption. And so there was this place of like, I was lied to about who I was. So there was all this stuff, right? That was on top of sort of these natural energies that were coming out and through me. And and this is the case, I think, with a lot of people who grow up in traumatic environments or conflict-oriented environments, is that their capacities get used for survival instead of thriving. So we start using, in a way, our gifts and capacities against ourselves, but it's not really against ourselves. It's just what we need to do to survive, right? It's just what we had to do to survive. And so it's kind of like the comedian, right? That's like, that like makes mom laugh and ends up, And so
I was that too. I was actually a comedian for a while in South Florida, on stage, everything. It was fun, but go ahead. Want you to keep telling your story.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I could totally see that in you. And the thing is, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because on the one hand, you're covering up pain. On the other hand, why are you covering up pain with that particular thing? Is because it's a gift of yours and it's a natural go-to. It's just in you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so so I got really good. Like I basically, my facilitator was born being held at gunpoint by my brother who'd gone wacky for a minute, you know, and so I talked him off a ledge. That's when my facilitator showed up, you know, and so yeah, it is cool.
I mean,
and I had to,
but it's like cool how it was like you were just called to duty, you know?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And then again, a little bit like for a while in the early part of my career, I was facilitating for my life, so to speak. Right. And so I had to kind of clear some stuff around that. But to your question about what was the moment that sort of changed it, because I was, you know, living hard, drinking, drugging, crashing cars. And I had a really good friend that was killed in a drunk driving accident, and she was the drunk one. And it was interesting because it was on New Year's Eve. And well, it was the eve of New Year's Eve. And then the next night I was sitting in the hospital, like, because she was in the trauma room, and my friends were all partying. And I was like, what the F? Like, why? How, do you not see what this is for? And like, it was my wake up call. It was my call to something different in my life. And now I know it wasn't for them. I know that was my wake up call, not theirs, you know? And what was really strange is that my entire community of people, friends, looked to me to be the spiritual leader, looked to me to lead the prayer in the hospital, looked to me to lead the graveside ceremony, because her family was predominantly religious and was going to celebrate that way. And so we wanted to honor her. I led all of that. And I was like, why are you guys looking to me to that? What's that about? You know? And then at her funeral, at her graveside, there was this moment where I felt myself help her cross over. And I was like, what's that? What?
Yeah.
You know? And so that was my moment of what I've got to figure this out, because I'm going to end up in the same place if I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Well, I mean, I'm really glad I'm glad you kept moving on that path, and I'm really grateful. Like I said, when I met you, and I met you and your partner Suzanne at the same class, and I met you guys, and I was like, oh, cool, you know. But if I would have like I said, if I would have heard your shows and stuff like that before I met you, oh my God, I would have been all over you guys. I would like, so are we going to lunch together? Are we going to do this? Like, I would have been like that kind of.
It's so cute.
Okay, so now, like, kind of fast forward to here we are now, and like you're traveling the world, you're facilitating your Live Your Magic event, and now I've seen your videos, like of the event, and you have people. So it's not like your everyday event, because most transformational events, people are sitting in chairs, and it's kind of like a conference, but you've got something so different going on. Like, you've got people, I think I don't know if this is correct, but I think I saw someone do a cartwheel in the front of the room.
Yeah.
Okay.
True that.
What are you doing? Like, what is that about? Like, what is this? Because I was just like, wow, I've never been to anything like that before. So can you talk about like your event? And I have some questions on that. Like, why so much movement, and what is all that? Like, it looks like a big party.
It is. It is a big party. And I actually do have a party generally on the second night of the event, a theme party.
Oh,
like this last one was like an 80s theme, and we did a 30s theme in Bellingham. And okay, there's a lot of ways to go about this, but what I discovered, and I would say this is really what makes me unique in the transformational world.
Yeah.
Is that I really get that you could sit in a class, and if the information's only going one way, that's not transformation, that's information. And it's very different. If you're sitting just like absorbing, right? And how to express, if you can find a way to express that energy that has come in you in some way, then it begins to transform you. So there's a place where I believe that until we start expressing what we're learning, that we don't change. Like those are just nice ideas. It's like, you know, in Access, it's like, it's really great to go, oh my God, what a great question. What else is possible? But if you never use it, you never express, not much will change, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a kind of a deeper level of that. But what I found, I did this program years ago. It was called Accelerated Learning Community. It was a 9-month just transformational journey for people. And I would do this graduation weekend. And I decided to have this talent show at the end of it. And the talent show took over the whole weekend. Like it went from this hour-and-a-half thing to like 5 hours. And people made movies. They got into it. They did crazy ass shit. It was like a circus. And I remember sitting there going, there's nowhere else I'd rather be, because what was happening is they were expressing the capacities that had been opened up in them through the year. And like the shyest people who never spoke up would get up and do this phenomenal thing. And it'd be like, hi. Oh, wow. And there's so much transformation that happens in that. Yeah. And so, and it's funny because when people used to ask me what I did, I used to say, I help people run away and join the circus they never knew they wanted to join.
I can totally see that.
So this movie that came out recently, The Greatest Showman, just like, I've seen it twice and I just
really
cry.
Oh,
because
I haven't seen it.
It's really about highlighting the difference people are.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I do in Live Your Magic, I don't do a talent show, but what I do is I do this game called Magic Rising. And so when I see energy coming through somebody, or the magic rising, their capacities coming through, I will actually use them to facilitate the room. And so I'm not just the facilitator. Everybody in the space, as they turn on and turn up, becomes the facilitator, becomes the leader at some point. And it's just, and we ping off of each other. And the more that each person kind of lights up, the more that the whole room lights up. And there's more, the space just goes poof, poof, poof. And people have said, people from that have been in Access or wherever, say it's like a 7-day event in 2.5 days, like the amount of change that happens. That's and awesome. It's just this crazy magic. I co-facilitate with magic, so I never know what the hell's going to happen. But
that's another thing I was curious. I don't mean to like interrupt, but there's something that you were speaking about, how like it's called finding your magic, and will you speak a little bit about that, about what is going on there energetically, like in your own words, like it looked like, you know, you were explaining how like it like rises up within you, and I went straight to like Kundalini yoga, kind of thinking that kind of stuff, and I get it. Like I know that inspired space that comes up, like I call it my joy space. It's that space where if I'm working on something and I'm in that space, I don't have to sleep, I don't have to eat, I can just keep going and having a good old time with what I'm doing. But I'm curious to hear in your words, what happens inside of somebody? Like what's going on there? Like what is that when someone accesses their magic?
Well, what a very simple way to say it is that they opened enough or pulled enough off so that their natural genius or their natural capacities could rise. And that happens a lot of different ways. Like what you're describing is you actually creating, utilizing a certain amount of your capacities, like what I would call you're operating in your genius zone when you get to that place where you don't have to eat or sleep. And it's generative. It's a generative energy our capacities are. So when we're actually in our capacities, we feel more energy. If you're doing stuff that makes you feel tired, you're actually probably not utilizing your capacities. You're doing something that isn't your genius. And so that's what, you know, kind of what you're describing. And I would say that in the transformational space, that's happening, but it happens in a little bit of a different way. They may be talking about something like that is connected to who they actually are. And then it starts kind of lighting up, or somebody expresses something that taps something in them.
Yeah.
And so there's this context that I have for pinging magic, in other words.
Yeah.
That as it gets pinged, it just literally kind of, people actually can't stop it from coming up, because there's a space where, and I think for a lot of us, our magic has been so, I call it inconvenient for others. Like the things that were magic for us were really inconvenient for our parents a lot of times.
Right.
Or, and, you know, inconvenient if you could float in school, you know, like that people didn't know what to do with that, or whatever it was, right? So there's what I find, and why the expression is also so important, is that when there's a safe space and you know you're not going to be judged or run out of town or killed, that and there's been enough lifted off, there's enough permission given, that that's just who we are, and it rises. It just is. And I feel like having that occur in a space where it can be non-judgmentally witnessed, actually not it brings it to life, and it affirms it in a way that nothing else does.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to say the word, I feel that as you speak it. It's just like all in my chest, my body is just kind of like lighting up. Yeah, you're like you're being what you, that's another thing that got me. Like that's why I have to interview her. It was like, I was listening to one of your shows, and you were taught, I think it was the topic was just like about how some, most people that I would say, I mean, you know how there's a lot of coaches and transformationalists out here that are painting the picture of their lives to make it look like the house, the car, and all this la la la, everything is beautiful and rosy. And then you get on the air, and even if things are, no matter where things are, whatever you're going through, whatever, it's like what you see is what you get. And I noticed that I notice it because it's just like, it's really loud to hear someone just be so real and so upfront and honest about what's going on with themselves in their lives. And you and Suzanne are just so authentic on your show. And there was something, you had there was like a whole philosophy of why you chose to be very like putting everything on your sleeve, so to speak, in public, versus the kind of transformationalists that show, just the ritzy, the polished stuff, right? And I would love to hear that on this interview. Like, what's your philosophy behind that way of being? And I'm already feeling it all over myself. Like, it's lighting me up. And I want to hear in your words, like, what has you just be so making sure that you're like so upfront and honest out there with everybody?
There's so much to that for me, because if I have a cloak of perfection, then that's in the way of me transmitting the transformation that I can be for you. If I have a cloak up to you, then I have a cloak up to me. And so it's almost like there's an impediment or a wall between us. And to me, that type of a coach can only give information. They can't give transformation. And the other piece of it is that, and this is something that I'm going to tell a funny story on myself. So I mentored with Gay and Katie Hendricks for 6 years, and they're like body-centered relationship coaches. They've been on Oprah. They're very famous. And I actually mentored with them for that long because I'd never seen a relationship that worked. And even though it wasn't about new information, it was just about like us watching animals in a zoo, rare animals in a zoo. How did they do that? Because I'd never seen anything like that. Have people be in love, be creative together, make shit tons of money together, and have intimacy after 35 years of marriage. I was like, whoa, And anyway, but the thing is that they had a lot of best-selling books, like 10, 20, 30. And I was inspired to write a book on genius while I was doing their work with a guy that I taught genius with, Philip Johncock. And I literally just was inspired to write this book, went and stayed with him in Reno for a weekend, wrote it, came back, and like it had this kind of mini little whoosh, and it was really awesome. But my entire community, 4 people wrote books.
Yeah.
After I wrote my book, and I said, "Can you tell me why?" And they said, "Well, if you could write a book, anybody could." You know, and because I'm with the people. I'm not. A lot of people were not inspired in an environment like the Hendricks because they were so famous.
Yeah.
Oh, they can write a book because they're famous. Right. And then I realized that there was a value in just being me and just kind of figuring stuff out and pulling stuff out of the seat of my pants, because it gave people permission wherever they were on the journey that they could create something extraordinary, regardless of if they were famous or if they've been coaching for 10 years or whatever that was, because they figure if Megan could do it, anybody can. And I think, I love that. I don't see that as a negative. I see that as a total positive.
It's like in your vibe, man. Like I swear, just like I pop on if I want to listen to something uplifting, I'll put on your show, and it's like it's so instant. You've got I have never heard anything like it, and I'm just so grateful. It definitely, you're very motivating, and you have that thing about you where you actually make people feel like, yeah, they can accomplish anything. So, you know, if that's what you're here on the planet to do, good on you. You know, I'm just saying, like, it's working. I mean, and you're just being you. It's awesome. And yeah, I just really wanted to highlight that part, because I remember listening to that and I was like, oh my God, I just like wrote you that day. I was just like, I need to have her on here.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just want to acknowledge that we are coming up to the half-hour mark, and I do say that these interviews are 30 minutes. So is it okay if we go over a little bit? Because I do have just a couple more questions to ask you while we kind of wrap up. So I want to kind of backtrack just a little bit, okay? Because I know I'm like going all over, but look, the tapping into the magic piece, okay? I want to kind of backtrack a little bit, because I just want to know, is there like, you know, yes, there's all the access tools and stuff like that. And I'm curious, is there like a first step that, say, if someone's watching this video that's never experienced energy transformation or transformation in general, and they're like, what is this magic piece? Like, what is that? You know, what would you say would be a really good, like, first step for that person to be able to kind of start to look at that place within themselves?
Mm-hmm. Well, I have two ways to go about it. One, in keeping with access, is ask a question. Right. What magic am I that I've not been able to see or willing to see? Like, that's a really good place to start. Mm-hmm. And I do have some specific questions that point in the direction that will get you energy and information. Now, if people were to go to my website and sign up for my newsletter, they would get 2 books, The Power of Living Genius and a journal. And I'm a companion journal. It has 78 prompts that have questions that guide you into what I call the genius zone, which is that place where your capacities, where most of your capacities, your highest level capacities are. Mm-hmm. And we can develop any capacity. I'll be clear about that. But there's some that we actually came here with that are so, like, just right there. And when we tap it, time disappears. When we tap it, we have more energy after 10 hours than, than we did at the beginning of the 10 hours of being engaged in that activity or that energy. And so that would be the thing that I would ask people is, what is it that you do that time disappears?
Yeah.
Another question, one of my core questions around genius is, what did you love to do as a child? and then look at not just the activity, because it could have been climbing a tree, it could have been whatever, but what are the qualities that you were exhibiting and expressing during that? And so I think that to take magic out of the esoteric, I'm saying its capacities. I'm saying it's more than that. In the class, like I talk about the consciousness of magic and tapping into that inside ourselves and on the planet. But what I would say, it's that thing that you do that's so easy that you don't even acknowledge. You can't even really acknowledge it because it's so you. And people used to ask me when I called myself the genius coach, they asked me, well, what the hell is that? What do you do? And I said, I point out the obvious. And they're like, well, why would people pay you for that? It's because they can't see the obvious. Like when I look at you, like when you said you were a comedian, I would be like, yep. Like, like there's nothing, like, it's like, I see that, right? It's so right there for me. And so the things that are so easy for us, we oftentimes discount because they're easy. It based in a reality that's life is about hard. So if it's not hard, we don't think it's like worth anything. Right. And so looking at those things that time disappears, that are energizing, that people go, how did you do that? And you're like, I don't know, I don't do that, and like, that's a great place to have people start.
Cool. Wow. I'm kind of wondering, maybe I should get back up on stage. I don't know. Like,
would it be fun for you? Like, does that sound fun for you? And what else would it bring? Because there's a lot of things that are part of what I would call my natural capacities that I don't actually directly make money for, but wow, do they fuel everything else? Like when I'm playing tennis competitively, goes to another level. I wouldn't say I'm a genius tennis player, but what I would say is that I have physical capacities that get lit up when I'm playing sports that feed every aspect of my life. They make me more alive. And so the stage could be something like that for you. One of the things I see people do is they find something that they like to do and they put it as an end game right away, and they kind of cramp the process of the flow of like, actually, what is that activity for you? What is it serving and what does it feed?
Wow. Okay. And that brings me to a totally another question is like play. Like why play? Like what does play do? I noticed that in your videos you speak about playing and it changes more than anything else. And I'm curious, why play? Why should we be making sure that we play like every day? And like, what's all that about?
Well,
I mean, obviously because it's fun, but
yeah, I'm gonna make fun of you a little bit, but we can't. If you make sure to play, then it won't be play.
Oh, yeah. Right? I know. If I schedule in playing, like, no, it won't. Totally.
I believe when we play, we're engaged with the gods.
Yeah.
Like the energies of the universe, because when we're serious, we shut off possibilities. We confine ourselves. In play, we don't have the mind and the intellect aren't involved in the same way, and we tap pure possibility. And one of the things that I find a lot in my work is people like, I had no idea, like I was just having fun and everything in my life is different, and that's because I do that on purpose. I'm kind of like the magician that way. I'm like, hey, look over here. Aren't we having fun? But energetically, I'm moving a massive amount of energy.
Cool.
And it's like, and so there's this place where when we're at play, things can shift and move. That's when we enter the quantum field and we leave linear reality. When we're serious, you got to go through all the steps of the causal world. Step 1, step 2. What you're at play, you could go step 1, step 720. Woo, cool. That was fun. Boom, 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 boom.
Right.
And an energy and a quickness that opens when we go into play.
That's so cool. I love quantum physics. So like, if you want to speak quantum stuff, I love it.
I love quantum stuff.
Yeah, it said in your bio you worked with people from NASA. Like, what did you do? This is totally not even in my interview questions. I had some some stuff I wanted to ask about.
Oh,
What did you do for NASA?
That. That's so fun. This is a magic story.
I'm going to shut up now. Go ahead.
So you froze for a minute, but I think I know what you said. So I had a client come to me who is an NASA engineer. Mm-hmm. He was working on the space shuttle, and he was in a really high pressure kind of job. And he's so cute. He'd been coming to my classes, and he became aware ship had never worked for him as he was an emotional retard. And so he actually came in to actually learn how to get vulnerable, how to get, real, if you will, out of his head. And long story short, when you do that, you also access creativity. When you actually start getting vulnerable and you start actually allowing whatever energy we call emotion through, you're also tapping creativity. Mm-hmm. And what happened is I had something called the Genius Community at the time, and he was coming up against all this stuff about how creatives don't make money, and because there was this creativity trying to come out of him. Well, long story short, through our coaching together, he did find a wife who happened to be the #1 extreme female athlete in the world for 10 years in a row. So she was like kind of a big deal, and she introduced him to Burning Man. And he started building art cars for Burning Man. His first art car was a praying mantis, and it became so famous that Tony Heish from Zappos bought it to be a main installation in his project in the new street the redone street in Vegas. I think it's called Fremont Street.
Wow.
And we call it his coffee cup because it's the first thing he ever made, but it's being seen by millions of people. He has billionaires asking him to build art cars for them because he just builds these dynamic, beautiful pieces of like artwork, right?
Yeah.
And so this NASA engineer shaves his head, puts polka dots on it, and is building art cars that are famous. And it's like and what I love about that is he didn't come in for that. When people come to coaching with me, they're like, "Oh, I want a better relationship. I want more money." And I know after 22 years, that's not it. Like, okay, that's cool. We'll get you married off. That's fine. But there's some magic you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
That you haven't gotten to yet. And it's going to surprise both of us. Let's play. And that's one of my first questions. Are you willing to have what you think you're here for not be that thing, and to open up to something like totally magic in yourself? And that's the game I like to play. It's like, when we get into that place, that's where the fun is. It's like, whoa, I didn't know I was a that.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. You're awesome. I'm like, okay, so I would like to start to kind of wrap this up. I know we were like on a super high note. I would love to hear way more stories and stuff. Like I said, if I would have known, if I would have listened to your show before Hawaii, it would have been over. You guys would be like, can you tell this girl to like leave us alone? Anyway, so Megan, like, how can people get in touch with you? I know you mentioned about your signing up on your newsletter and stuff like that. And what are your links? And I'm going to put them underneath the video when I post it, so people can just click it and see you. And if you have any Facebook groups or other things like that, let it fly.
Cool. So my website, megansillito.com, is probably the best place to sort of get caught up on all the stuff I'm doing and see where Live Your Magic will be in Dallas the 23rd through the 25th of March. Mm-hmm. It's going to be in Maui at the last weekend of March, the 29th, 30th, 31st, I think. Mm-hmm. And so, but all that information will be on the website. You'll follow me on Facebook. That's really easy. And I will give you a link. I have this really cool text group called Possibility Play. I don't know if you're on there or not. I think you might want to hop on.
I will.
It's a free group, and I come up with a challenge or a question about 5 to 6 times a week. I'll generally have like maybe one day, depends on my mood. It's all spontaneous. It's such a spontaneous way for me to contribute to people as things come to me. And so I'll be like, okay, wherever you are, do something silly right now for 30 seconds, or I'll like create a question or whatever it is to kind of keep people in the space of question. And it's just, you sign up and it comes to your text, like, and it's, people love it. People love it so much. And so I will give you that link. It's another way to play with me, and it's free. So how fun is that? So that would be, I don't have Weird on Air book group for our radio show. And we will have, there's lots of extra files and extra tools that we give after the show of things we talk about on the show. So there's a little more stuff there, but I would say,
can I just ask you one question?
And then, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. How did you guys get Weird on Air? Like that name, like, am I freezing up?
No, you were for a sec. You're okay now.
Okay. Yeah, I want to know, like I have not heard of anybody, like you guys just put out Weird on the Air, and it's like totally, it just totally works. And I know a lot of people, I've worked for a lot of different facilitators and stuff over the years, and people are like, I don't want to use the word weird too much. And then here comes Megan, and you've got the show Weird on the Air, and it's totally like working. What
I think it's a word whose time has come.
Yeah.
And it's a power word that was used against people who were powerful. And I knew even before Access, that word came to me, and Suzanne was like, oh, we can't use that word. I'm like, we're using that. We're making that word like awesome again. And I just knew it. I just knew that was a word that I could stand behind and play with, and people would get it. And it was so weird because all of a sudden, within about 6 months of that, all these memes, weird became cool. And that was what I wanted. It's like, weird is the new cool.
Yeah.
You know? So,
I once just on a really quick side note, I was working for this company, and it was like a transformational company. And I was called into the office, and I had done some projects out in the world, like that was, dressing up in drag and performing and doing some things like that. And one of the boss was just kind of saying, like, she said something about me being weird out in the world. And it occurred to me as like an insult. Like I had to like tone myself down, and I was just kind of like, wow. And I left there being like, I'm never going to be called weird again, like and have to take it as an insult or have it be something that is negative for myself. I hadn't yet come across Access, and I hadn't yet come across anything that had told me the definition of weird, but to have somebody of like some sort of authoritative or space kind of tell me that, I got to watch myself out in the world if I'm going to be working for this transformational company. It was really, it kind of spun me off and like had me just begin leaving that place, but also seeking something else, and in a way that I could just be me. But to see it out there now in the world and know that the word weird in the dictionary means like of fate or destiny is just like so interesting to me,
It also means supernatural abilities.
Oh, wow.
So like when people call me weird, I say thank you. And that's the piece. That was the piece that I was aware of even before the fate or destiny came in. I was like, why am I connected to that word? And when I looked it up and saw that, I was like, that's what I want to bring forward, because so many people that are so unique in their capacities, that the things people in this reality call weird are the things that will change this reality, and they're scared of them. That's why they call that negative thing. Yeah. But like that, so many people have had that exact experience, which is why I want to take that word and go, it's freaking cool. Yeah. They're telling you have capacities that they don't even freaking get, that will change their reality and force them out of their little boxes, and they don't like it. Good job, you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited. And it's like no quinkadink that like I kind of got somehow our paths crossed. I'm like so grateful. Okay, so I want to just ask you one question, and this question is something that I ask every single person that does an interview with me on Energy Transformation Week. So I just want you, Megan, to personally go back in time to, or just like to the person that you were before you took the steps forward to become the facilitator, the inspirationalist, changing all these lives and stuff like that. And like at the beginning of it, right? And say like if that person that's just about to start embarking on that journey, okay? Mm-hmm. If that person was watching this video, what would you say to encourage her as the being that you are today?
Hmm. Hmm. I would say that everything that in your life that you feel challenged by, that you feel like is wrong about you, that you feel is insurmountable, is the exact thing that will create miracles. And you can make yourself wrong or stay where you are, or like it's all okay. But what if there's a miracle in all of this?
It's beautiful. Thank you so much. And I know that when people watch this, they're going to get that message, and it comes through in who you are. And I just want to tell you, thank you so much for giving me your time today and for doing this interview with me. And I'm just really grateful to know you. And yeah, and if there's anything that you'd like to say in closing, you have the floor.
Thank you. Well, I just remembered I didn't actually say the name of my radio show, because that's another place people can get in touch and get lots of great tools, and they can call and get coaching for free, So that's what I love about our show. And we have a chat room. So we have like a classroom space inside our radio show that's super fun. It's called Love, Life, and All Things Weird, and it's on Inspired Choices Network. I'm post every week the show on my Facebook page, so they can find it that way too. So I just wanted to say the actual name of the show. Weird on Air is the Facebook group connected to the show, which is Love, Life, and All Things Weird.
So the radio show is Love, Life, and All Things Weird.
Yes.
Cool. And it's awesome. I have it in my in my little podcast on my phone. It's one of those go-tos. So you want to put it in your phone, guys, and listen to it when you're driving around and doing whatever. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Megan. And, I just want to tell everybody that tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be interviewing Lauren Polly. And she's a best-selling author of a book called The Other Side of Bipolar. So we're going to be talking about some really cool stuff there. So join us tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern. And Megan, I like I said, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for being here.
I had so much fun. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel so honored to be on. Thank you.
Oh, I got that. Thank you. All right, guys, take care. Bye-bye.